keep chopping it up.
You're not going to see me if I chop it up.
Huh?
You're going to see. No, I can go from the side. I'll go from the side.
Oh my gosh, really? It's so strange. Like, it's a fictitious world or whatever, a digital world out there. I don't know who's listening. I mean, it's funny.
I just had my
There could be a bunch of squirrels listening to me, right? Whoops. I mean, it's such an alternative universe that we're living in right now. There could be gerbils and squirrels listening to me. You would make it sound like an audience, Ebola.
They're right here.
Oh my God, they could hear me?
Yes.
No. No! I didn't mean it that way. I live with all kinds of... I live in... Jesus.
Can you see the comments as well?
Oh, I can. If my glasses didn't fog up. Oh, that's Omo. Oh, can I reply to that?
Of course you can.
What do I click on? Oh, I'm useless. Chat. So excited to have you. Okay. Aw. 2. I am so happy of this. Daisy. Okay.
All right. You happy? Ready?
Yes, I am.
All right, great. Morning, everyone. Well, morning where we are. I'm in Lagos. I don't know where everyone is. But hi, welcome to this session of Woven Threads that Bandana's so graciously agreed to take on slowness and the importance of handwork in the creative economy. So just a few things. There's a question and answer segment. So if you have any questions while she's speaking, you can submit your questions there. Bandana will speak for about 12 to 15 minutes. And then after that, you can raise your hand and then we can have sort of an interactive session. So really looking forward to this, Bandana. And I'll be on mute, but when I do let you join and speak, I will unmute you. So please get ready to speak, just so it's not an awkward in between. Great. Okay. All right, Bandana, over to you.
Okay, hi everyone. This is Bandana Tewari from Bali, where it's hot, but I'm lucky to be surrounded by nature. And I feel grateful that I feel healthy, as I hope you do during these times. I want to thank Lagos Fashion Week's Woven Threads for giving me this opportunity to share my very humble thoughts. And thanks to everyone else who's listening, and I look forward to your interactions and questions. Special thank you to my dearest Omoyemi for introducing me to the unique love that I have for Nigeria. I feel eternally grateful. So let's start with the art of slow, because I think it will help us understand why we need to recalibrate who we are as human beings before we start thinking of ourselves as creative beings. I mean, there's no doubt our lives have come to a crippling halt because of COVID-19. And I find myself wondering, now that I really don't know what my future holds, what it really means to live in the moment. How do I even envision a future when professional touchstones like ambition, fame, status sound hollow? Even though the COVID-19 attacks us individually today, for centuries, we, the human race, have collectively inflicted ecocide, ecological suicide on our planet. This is something that's defined by Extinction Rebellion, that we are the asteroids that have brought unprecedented destruction to humanity. And then in our pomposity today, we really think we can continue doing business as usual? Fact is, as someone said, there's no business to be done in a dead planet. And so here's the mantra of our times, a quote by Harold Wilson. He who rejects change is the architect of decay. COVID-19 has made us naked with one brutal truth. If we don't change, we die. I feel very lucky. I live in Bali. I feel so grateful to be naturally connected to nature. It's all around me. There are paddy fields all around where farmers toil day and night, planting, plowing, harvesting, and then feeding us. I just wrote a piece for the Business of Fashion recently, and there I made this observation. When I made my last visit to my neighborhood farmers and fishermen before lockdown, I was suddenly struck by their perennial commitment to till the land and sail on tumultuous oceans just so I had fresh food on my table. I realized, though, they spoke a different language, very different from you and me. They spoke about the reciprocity of taking and giving. It's the idea that we do not stand on the land, we are the land. This, in my opinion, is the true language of sustainability. And before COVID-19, the traditional farmers and fishermen, the artisans, the craftspeople are simple, everyday heroes. And the outlook that is intrinsic to their work was invisible to so many of us. But now, for the first time, I think people all around the world are getting a sense of what sustainability really means. It is damn personal. Sustainability is not just about wearing an organic t-shirt. It has to be a way of life. It is about everyday, ordinary choices that have extraordinary impact on the world. We know today, living in isolation, that beyond our basic needs, clean air and water, wholesome food, and the company of loved ones, everything else seems excessive and greedy. So sustainability will now be an act of conscious living, whereby we acknowledge that more and more, faster, not fewer, bigger is better, will not sustain us anymore. While we sit in our homes today, contemplating a world that will, perhaps, change dramatically henceforth, we have to dig deep to make amends with our past behaviors, especially the blind consumerism that underpins so much of the fashion system. So when we get back on our feet, we must ask ourselves, what does the designer, what does the fashion designer, fashion consumer, the manager, the employee of tomorrow look like? I imagine there will be a profound awakening after this time of crisis. In order for us to be sustainable in an industry and as human beings, we must break old patterns and find new, more elevated ways of living. So today, I'm here to give this talk because I call on you for an ideological shift in the way you think, create, consume, and dispose. This is a call for earth consciousness, where we truly believe that creation is sacred. Where I come from, which is India, Mahatma Gandhi took 11 vows through his lifetime to live a profound, mindful, and elevated life. One of the vows that he took was called aparigraha. What does it mean? It means, aparigraha means that we are trustees and custodians of the planet, not the owners. So today we need environmental ethics to be part of our daily lives. In the old sacred language of Sanskrit, again from India, there is a phrase that encapsulates all that I'm saying right now. And the phrase is Vasudeva Kutumbakam. It means the universe is my family. This has to be a personal affirmation to the universe, and we need to manifest it with our actions. Now, when we start working as designers, creators from this elevated state of consciousness, there is no question that we will create with compassion, empathy, and authenticity. Interestingly, there is a story by Oscar Wilde, whom I love, who at one time printed Professor of Aesthetics on his visiting cards. He believed that he could transform, that he could redesign not just his image, but his very self. So I say to you, this is going to be an era which will be about the aesthetics of self, not mere products. Beauty for beauty's sake is redundant. Design for design's sake sounds purposeless. We must ask ourselves what the purpose of creativity is. What and whom does it serve? Does it have social impact? On a fundamental level, we need to ask a personal question, a very personal question. Whose life did you change for the better with your creativity? Tomorrow, in order to be able to answer this question, we need to redesign not only products, but ourselves. Fashion has to be purpose-driven with principles of sustainability to guide us, yes, but there is no doubt that we need to repair ourselves individually before we rebuild and reset our creative worlds collectively. So now you may ask, what is that type of creativity that will sustain us and uplift us? Is it going to be a culture of ethos driven by individual will? In my opinion, I think it is going to be a cultural takeover. Culture is power. Culture will be our new currency. And I'm not saying this in a glib marketing jargon, which needs to be hashtagged. That's not the way I mean it at all. The reality post-COVID will be very, very stark. We will travel less. Our global resources will be limited. The design trajectory of, say, a fancy shirt that you and I will buy, where the stitching happens in Bangladesh, the buttons come from China, the embroidery comes from India, that will change. From globalization, we will move to regionalization. We will all have to look into our own backyards for inspiration and resources. We will have to deep dive into our own cultural history, our sartorial inheritance, and start revisiting narratives that we ignored or narratives we chose to ignore in the hurly-burly of modernization and homogenization. The fact is, in pre-COVID times, we lived in a hyper-globalized world. So much so, we degraded the same, consume the same things, and fuel the roar of novelty. Transparency, making invisible countries who are for the very things that ethnicity. Back on.
Yes.
Where did I lose you?
You were talking about having to go from globalization to regionalization.
Okay. Okay, let me find my part. Okay, I'm just going to start from, if we want to make products and designs of real value tomorrow, we need to go back to culture, to our roots, to our own storytelling. However indigenous they may be, we must be proud of them. We must respect the narrative of every face and every hand that touches the things we pay for with our hard-earned money. Culture will be our most authentic, creative content provider, not by doing lip service to it, or worse, culturally appropriating it. We must immerse ourselves in the very culture that we intend to get inspired by. For this, we will need to empower the artisanal worlds, villages of the world, so that craftspeople can co-create with you in their own habitat without having to migrate to already overpopulated urban areas. In the past, the mass exodus of artisans leaving their villages for the cities to work in factories not only saw the erosion of indigenous skills, but the destruction of ecosystems of families and farmlands. Gandhi, again, I keep going back to Gandhi. Gandhi believed in the idea of Sarvodaya, which means welfare for all. But this cannot happen if we look at each other's countries as just sources for raw materials, sources for cheap labor, sources for extraordinarily made handmade textiles, embroideries, embellishments, for which the countries get very little credit. Brands of tomorrow will be beholden to give dignity of labor to the craftspeople of the world, to the factory workers who make our sneakers, our tees, and our hoodies. The designers of tomorrow will be beholden to a bigger purpose, that humanity is creativity at its best. And we need a world where there is a beautiful, fulfilling communion between creator, producer, and user. Creativity today has to be a quest for authenticity. That would be a Gandhian approach to the fashion business. Today, we need a world of activist designers who are committed ideologically to be slow thinkers, slow creators, slow consumers. Ahimsa, or non-violence, is at the heart of the slow fashion movement, a movement that focuses on quality, not time. Ahimsa, or non-violence, goes to the heart of the dialogue on sustainability and the ethics of fashion production. It holds up a mirror to our technological progress and industrialization. On a fundamental level, it asks if our systems and patterns of consumption are non-violent. Will it continue to be linear systems of fast, unscrupulous production, consumption, disposal, creating extraordinary waste and damaging our environment? Or are we going to create circular systems where the end of one life cycle of a product becomes the starting point for another life cycle? It is not about the speed of making and consuming things. It is mindful luxury characterized by long life, authenticity, environmentally friendly designs created with great sensibility to local crafts and cultures. We need to build ahimsa, or non-violence, into the tapestry of fashion. Just remember a simple formula that I use myself. A product has no value if the process is not respected. And the process has no value if there is no purpose to it. Please look at COVID-19 as an opportunity and a journey of self-discovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Bandana. That was great. So I'm just going to go to the first person who's got their hand up. Hi, Lorna.
Hi. Let me just get rid of this so I can see everything. Yes.
Okay. Well, we have a question just before Lorna speaks. Priyanka wants to know, how do we stop the throwaway culture in consumers?
By buying less. I mean, I speak about this all the time. The reason why we throw away so easily and so unconsciously is because we buy too much. And this level of consumption is obviously filling landfills, and we don't think about. The problem is, when we say I'm throwing away something, people think that they disappear. There's no away in throwing away. It goes somewhere. So the only way as consumers we can help disrupt the system of throwing away is just by buying less. Buy things of value, buy things that you're going to hold on to, buy things that you can pass on, something that you can swap, but not the $2.99 t-shirt that doesn't even give fair wages to the makers of it. And we buy them in hordes, and we are not beholden to any level of conscious thinking as to why it's made, who made them. So just by buying less and buying consciously and throwing away less, I think that will be it's a personal commitment that anyone can make.
Hi, Connie.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good,
Go ahead.
Thanks, Bandana. This is a fantastic presentation. My name is Connie. I'm from Nairobi, Kenya. I had 2 questions for you. Could you kindly elaborate? You spoke about mindful luxury, but I just wanted you to just elaborate a bit more on that, what that is. And then could you also just rephrase, there's a phrase you gave us, product has no value if process is not respected. And then I didn't hear the last part of that.
Okay, sure. I will go first to mindful luxury.
Yeah.
You're from Nigeria, yes?
No, I'm from Nairobi, Kenya.
Oh, you're from Nairobi. Okay, so what I meant was we all come from cultures that are very deeply rooted in the act of giving and taking, being passed down from generation to generation, right?
Yeah.
So mindful luxury is knowing that, accepting, knowing, valuing, honoring what is being passed down to you, or even what you buy that is not going to be disposed. If I'm going to buy a piece of whatever it is, could be a bag or a beautiful dress, I buy that keeping in mind that I will be able to pass it on to my daughter. And hopefully she will be able to pass it on to her daughter. We do this in India all the time with the saris that are being passed down from grandmothers to mothers to people like to daughters. So mindful luxury is not necessarily about, is being mindful luxury consumers. It is not about the thing that you have. No one is going to judge anyone for buying the beautiful things that we should be investing in. People spend a lot of time being creative, making beautiful garments, beautiful watches, beautiful whatever it is. But when we buy them, it is bought with the idea that we are going to consume it mindfully, not as an act of pomposity, not as an act of stature and social. It is because you're going to keep it, because you want to pass it on. I think that's what I meant by mindful luxury.
Okay.
Now, the second question that you had, which is about the product. And so, hold on. I said that the product has no value if we don't honor the process. The reason why I'm saying this is we look at a product and say how beautiful it is. And then what happens is product becomes center stage and you forget that there are hands and faces that made them. So the product doesn't exist without the creativity of human beings. And a beautiful product has a certain process that goes from one hand to another, from people, from communities. Think of a beautiful artisanal jacket that's made in Nairobi, you know?
Yeah.
It has a cultural context. It would have a village economy. There would be a grandmother who would do something. So that whole narrative gets lost if we focus just on the product as an item of beauty. So it is important to understand the process to give value to the product. But now the process itself will seem irrelevant if we do not have a purpose to that process. So imagine if a big brand came and pillaged the creativity of a beautiful village in India that does amazing artisanal work, okay, and did not give due credit. Then what's the purpose of that kind of beautiful item that's being made? But imagine if that very brand can give back to that community, can give credit to the community that made it. They become co-creators of a beautiful product. Then they're giving back to that community, making it thrive. So there is a certain purpose to that process that makes the product. So I think it's important for us to understand the entire trajectory of the cycle of creation, that without purpose, without keeping people in mind, without keeping process in mind, a thing of beauty, it means, at least to me personally, means nothing much. Sorry.
Great, thank you, Bandana. Got another question for you. Tanya says, how do we work on the pricing? Sustainable fashion is sold at an exorbitant price, which is way beyond affordability. So how do we look at pricing and sustainability in the same picture?
Right. See, I'm not a designer, and I certainly don't have the kind of Excel sheets that can tell you, the numbers. But I do know that well-made, sustainable products and designs and clothes, what have you, do cost a bit more. They're not incredibly. We are used to buying, fast fashion T-shirts for $2.99. So we think when we have to pay $5, it's exorbitant. But the fact is, a sustainable practice takes a lot more thought, systems, checks, and the amount of every part of the supply chain. If a sustainable brand is looking into, that takes more time, more effort, more money. So yes, it is going to cost more than a fast fashion T-shirt from whichever company you want to name. So why should we not pay a little bit more for a more valuable product that also cares for our environment? I don't think that the price range is so horrific. It's not like buying, couture and you're buying ready to wear. I think we can fork out the extra dollars to buy something that's made mindfully, environmentally conscious, and say, instead of the 10 T-shirts that I would buy in a month, which I got at a discount for nothing, instead refrain from that and buy 2 that is going to cost a bit more, because there's a system of transparency. You know where your money is going. You know that the people who are making it are being paid fair wages. I think that's a call customers need to take. We've been trained to live in a discounted world where cheap is doled out to us like donuts. So we've forgotten that things of value will cost a little bit more, and we should acknowledge that and be willing to pay that. Again, that's my humble opinion.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, Lorna.
Hi, Bandana. This is Lorna Watson from This is Stellar, also based out of Bali. Thanks so much. Hi. Thanks so much for this brilliant discussion. I love the ethos of creatives being beholden to a greater purpose, and I'd love to ask your opinion. At what level do you think consumers are ready to receive and embrace something like this?
Lorna, mine is a media background. I worked with Vogue India for 13 years. I continue to work with several publications. I know how it works, the system where we make things palatable, digestible, cool, hip, sexy, all of it. We do it as media people. We spread the message that we want to spread. And so there is no reason why we cannot, as media people, start talking about, do we need an ideological shift in the way we talk about clothes and consumption? That's not to say we don't want to celebrate creativity. We will always want to buy things that are beautiful, wonderful. Maybe we don't need so much. Maybe now, we are, as media people, we are, as consumers, are beholden to, also designers are beholden to a higher purpose, as I speak about. Media people are beholden to a higher purpose to actually give people the real narrative of what the making of a product is all about. Let's celebrate those cultures. Let's go behind the scenes. Let's talk about what the storytelling really means. Let's resonate with consumers. Consumers are like you and me. If I listen to a good story, I will fall head over heels, and so will you. So I don't think that when I say, let's make an ideological shift, it's such a tall call that we're expecting regular consumers not to believe in it. I think it's the storytellers, people in the media, that who have a chance now to turn that corner and make it as accessible, wonderful, desirable as they did a luxury bag. We don't have a choice right now. We're all living in existential doom right now. We don't know what our future holds. How can we not sort of rejig each of our individual professions to see how can we become a better version of ourselves? I think that is the fundamental truth about, because we are human beings. Creativity comes because we are all living human beings and we are struggling. I'm back.
Hi.
Sorry. This is Bali. So I feel that it's not, I think we assume the worst of this amorphous consumer bracket, like as if consumers are like these aliens who are like floating around. They're people like you and me. If I can convince you, Lorna, and you can convince me, I think, we have a huge audience who will too. It's no different. I was a consumer. I bought all those silly t-shirts for $2 and never thought anything about it. And my path changed. And so many of you who are, talking about sustainability, I don't think it's a tall task to change minds. And people are primed right now because of this personal crisis. You're primed to change minds. It's a wonderful opportunity.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorna.
Thanks very much, Bandana.
Thank you.
I'm just trying to add in the next person.
Sure.
David.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear? Hi. Nice to
Hi.
meet you. Thank you so much for this. I'm Neal from Ghana. Yes.
Thank you for listening, Neal.
I have a quick question, and it's pertaining to sustainability. I just wanted to understand, after this whole pandemic, is there a way one can be sustainable in terms of a fashion brand through art? And if yes, how feasible is it? And then the second one would be, after this whole crisis, in terms of like using raw materials and reusing upcycled products, do you think a brand should be more scientific about it, or should still continue to use the normal ways of producing in a way?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to go to your second question first. I have lots of friends in the design world, some pretty accomplished in different parts of the world. And because the supply chain has ended, or it's been completely disrupted for the time being, they can't produce anything. They realize they're sitting with a lot of old inventory. And when I say old inventory, it doesn't mean they are not good. They're what they made with love, at the time that they made those collections, but then they just sat there with the surplus. And so I was talking to them and I said, what a wonderful time to bring out that inventory. Don't manufacture for a year. Don't manufacture for 2 years. But how about, like, as you were saying, can you upcycle it? I think it's such an opportunity. Are you a designer? Sorry, Neal? Are you a designer?
Yes, please. I am.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
I am.
So do you sit with a lot of inventory?
No, currently I'm an emergent brand and I use upcycled ways of producing a product. So
right.
Yeah.
I think you are in a better position than these big brands who are sitting with, with warehouses full of unsold clothes. If you are an upcoming designer, I think what I said previously in my talk was the idea that bigger is better is redundant. Today you're on social media, you'll probably make the kind of the sales that will make your business survive, keep you happy, but it won't be excessive because you have control in the way you can sell through Instagram, for instance, or through Facebook, or propagate your design ideology. I think the size of your business is going to be your biggest advantage. and don't, like we've been taught, it's been regurgitated over and over by marketing people that bigger is better. That, oh, if you're in this one country, then you've got to be in 5 countries. If you're in 10 stores, you've got to be in 20 stores. I think that's been the doom of fashion, you know? So I keep it small, have a loyal tribe of your brand followers. You can keep continuing to increase it. But I think the idea of being hurried into this consumptive patterns is going to make you, the creative person, unhappy. Create enough that you can sell. Create enough that can give you joy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Thank you for asking the question. Thank you for listening.
Okay, I'll take another question from the Q&A. Since we're talking about business, there's a question from Elfrida, and she says, any advice on new business models for young fashion designers building an ethical and sustainable brand?
I think, you know, you guys who are the young upcoming designers, you grew up with social media, and you grew up where you can have your own online boutique where you can control. I think the whole system of fashion, with fashion shows and trade shows and all that it entails, all the pomp and pageantry, where only a certain number of people, so the fashion elite, get access to, that is done. I don't think we're going to see the kind of excess that we saw till just a year back anymore now. So you have a chance as a sustainable brand now to build something that is authentic, that is, when I say small, don't make it, it's not sort of, I'm not trying to put down the business and say it's small. I think small is going to be beautiful. Catering to not everybody. You don't have to be everything to everyone. That you know that you have your niche, that you know that the ones who ideologically believe in your sustainable practice, they understand why you hand dye it, why you don't use chemical dyes and you use vegetable dyes. If they are the ones engaged, then that is your audience. And that will grow organically, but focus on your core audience. So don't think about, oh, do I need to be in this big store? Because that store doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't matter. It could be the best. It could be Bergdorf, it could be whatever. Everyone is, it's a shit show right now, as we all know. So I think use the social media tools that you have to build your brand. Build it authentically. Don't create too much. Create what can be sold. Upcycle what can't be sold. Use your inventory, recycle. These are things that, you know, you designers, you were born into. I grew up in a very consumerist environment, and I had to de-learn a lot. You are already growing into it, so you had a huge advantage. I feel very optimistic for sustainability designers who are starting out small, but will have a big voice because they're going to be authentic.
That was great. That was really good. Got another question. How do you control the speed of greed for expansion by brands, which indirectly leads to the push in large-scale manufacturing?
We've just seen the collapse of it. You know, some $30 billion worth of clothes that were ordered from the factories in Bangladesh have just been canceled, and the entire country is in turmoil. So this greed is bringing down governments, it's bringing down countries. And unfortunately, you know, at least we are part of the developing world, and we are bearing the brunt of this level of consumerism that was fueled in the more affluent countries. So we produced for the most affluent parts of the world, and yet when the system collapses, it is these countries that suffer the most. So that system is, it's gone. I think to the detriment of, I mean, to these big companies. I wonder, how are they going to bounce back with a conscience? Leave alone their business and the money that they're going to lose. How do you bounce back with a conscience when you have put people back there in the poverty line in the developing countries, while you become billionaires on the sweat off their back. Did I answer your question? I just get carried away with my emotions.
I think so. Someone goes, even Arushi goes, even if consumers change their consumption patterns, don't you feel producers or creators and policymakers have the ability to bring in a more radical change?
I think change has to come from every front. If government policies don't change to look after the people who are not represented in factories where 20,000 people are milling every day, toiling every day to make our cheap t-shirts, government needs to be involved. I think every aspect of the fashion cycle in the supply chain, in government policies, consumers, retailers, everyone, like COVID-19 has upended the entire system. There is nothing that's working right now, and the old systems will change.
Okay, great. I'm just going to add in another person, Nikita.
Hi, Nikita. Can I hear?
Hello?
Is that for me?
It's for Nikita. We can't hear. I think she's having some issues with her microphone. All right, let's just answer another question. Nikita?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm shaking because I'm so excited to talk to you, Bandana. But
oh, hi, Nikita.
Hi, I'm from India, and I actually have a quick question for you. So there's basically two facets to the fashion industry that are coming up now. One are smaller brands that are authentic, that are trying to sell an authentic story where they genuinely care about the products, the process, and everything that comes with it. And on the other hand, there are bigger brands who are trying to ride this wave of sustainability in which they have so many resources that they can pump into the industry that they can actually come off as selling an authentic stories. And I don't blame the consumers for being bought in by them, because I mean, I cannot expect a consumer to be sitting at home and reading about what's wrong, what's right in the industry. They just want to go out and they want to shop. And if someone tells them, hey, this is a sustainable clothing and this is how it was made, even if it's authentic or inauthentic, they're going to feel good about it and they're going to go for it. So how do smaller brands, even though like we're trying our best to stay authentic, how do we create that difference so it's like visibly there that, you know, I mean, do you get what I'm trying to say? Sorry.
Of course I do. Of course I do. I mean, you know, I worked in major magazine brands, and I know how smaller, authentic brands get bulldozed because they're not advertisers. They're not going to add to the profitability, Excel sheet, whatever. I've seen that. I think now that anyone who is doing disservice to any industry is being called out, I think your story will resonate, will not disappear, because there's so many ways of telling that story. I feel, Nikita, in all honesty, when I look at the magazines, I come from the publishing background, right? I mean, I worked in magazines. How are magazines going to survive without now talking about sustainability and authenticity and mindfulness? How are you going to go back selling a $20,000 watch without a sense of purpose? Like, after COVID-19, this is a shakeup. So I think, in my opinion, magazines will change. They will finally commit to promoting young designers who had an authentic story all along, but never got the time and space. And I am the last person to agree with the format that was existing till now, which is every magazine that says, oh, my January issue, because the start of the new year, is the green issue. And then for 11 months after that, there is no talk of sustainability. It just becomes a theme. So I think that young brands, upcoming sustainable brands should feel very optimistic, because no magazine will look authentic if they are going to use one page as the green page and report on sustainability. Now we have to commit massive amounts of coverage to the people, the real change makers that are coming from the generation like yours, Nikita. This whole bubble of the big brand, the conglomerate or whatever, they're going to look silly if they're going to keep promoting consumerism that has been promoted till date. COVID-19, I promise you, is the shake-up for the fashion industry like no other. But on the optimistic side, I do believe that younger brands, mindful brands who was at it, not giving up, even in the throes of fast fashion and consumerism, they will come out as winners. You will be represented.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikita.
Okay, wow, way more questions now. Someone asked, what's the best advisable way to launch back in business after this pandemic? Release a new collection.
Okay, you have to repeat that because I lost you.
It goes, this person asks, what's the best advisable way to launch back in business after the pandemic? Should they release a new collection or should they push already existing collections?
Push the existing ones. Take a break. You don't need to make a collection right now. The whole world is on a standstill. It's going to take time to recalibrate your business, put the system back in place. If you're sitting with collections already, upcycle them, celebrate. They all came out of your own creativity. It may have come out at a different time, but it came out from your creative genius. There's no reason why they should be put in boxes. Bring them out, dust them off, make that narrative of like why. I think it's such a wonderful narrative. I would rather buy something that someone pulls out of the inventory now than someone who creates something new, because it defeats the purpose of just saying slow down, man. Just slow down. It's okay. And so if you've got this beautiful inventory sitting there, repurpose them, recycle, upcycle, but use that. Don't create right now. Give yourself a break. It's nice to be able to think, sit back and think, and allow yourself this time that we were never able to give ourselves.
Great. Connie would like to know, how do you think the African luxury market will change after COVID-19?
You know, I'm biased because I think Africa is flourishing, will always flourish. There is like, it is so culturally deep that now when I think about how are we going to consume and what are we going to consume, and as I said in my talk, you can't possibly think that a world is going to exist where, you know, one shirt is going to travel to 5 countries so that it's packaged and brought to you. I think we are going to look into our own backyards for inspiration, for instance. So I think the continent of Africa, with all its cultural affluence, can you imagine dipping back and making these stories that are going to come alive, not just for the countries of Africa, but to the world, to show that cultural ownership, that sartorial inheritance. I feel very optimistic about countries and certainly the continent, which are very culturally entrenched. We have histories that goes through thousands and thousands of years. Now we get to like live it and admire it and honor it. And so countries like India, Indonesia, almost every country in Africa, I think we've lived with such a massive heritage and wealth that we just need to dig in. So I feel very optimistic about the future of Africa, as I do about other old indigenous countries like India and Indonesia.
That's great. A question from Ruby. Ruby says, thank you for sharing your insights. Are you saying that moving forward, the ruling fashion as communities instead?
Sorry, you said as moving forward?
Forward, the ruling fashion.
I lost you.
You lost me, I'm here.
Okay.
Moving, the ruling fashion will, that moving industry will be required to operate as community.
Lost you.
Let me try this again. Moving forward,
the
ruling industry will be required to operate as communities instead.
So moving forward, will fashion industry be working
would it have to operate as communities instead? I think this is about the regionalization.
100% yes. For far too long, we've used the craftspeople and artisans from some of the most prolific countries in the world and not given them enough credit. I have seen this up front because I lived in India. I live in Indonesia. I see that happening here too. I think for far too long, we've not given credit to the very artisans that have embellished the dress that you've sold, the shoes that have been decorated, whatever. Now, I think when you say creation is a community act, it is about co-creation, that the artisan is as big a stakeholder in the design process as the designer is himself or herself. And that we must respect, because culture is going to be a huge barometer of our times, because after COVID, we are going to be happy to say, I am different. I am different and I value my difference. So it's the opposite of globalization, where we are homogenized and everyone is the same and we eat the same shit. And it's like, after COVID, we are all going to be home. We are going to be in communities that make us feel safe. We are going to understand our cultural provenance. And the way we create is by co-creation, not by just extracting the valuable inputs and the traditions and the artistry and the skills of the people, but making them equal stakeholders in the creative process. I hope I understood this question right. I usually hear.
Yes, I think you did. Okay, I've got another question from Michael. Mm-hmm. Michael says, there seems to be a lot of energy towards educating designers and very little has been done in changing the minds of consumers. Shouldn't there be mass campaigns targeting consumers about changing their buying habits, especially in third world countries?
Absolutely. 100% we should be educating our consumers. But here's the thing, who is going to educate the consumers? So we're not talking about students in a school, right? We're talking about consumers who go to work and then they go out to shop. And media is the biggest culprit. We have not taught anything of sense, for years. We only teach consumerism. So I really think that the media of tomorrow will have to take a bigger and better role in educating, and not in a didactic, erudite. I'm not saying it should. I think magazines of tomorrow, I would love to see how you're going to tell your consumers to buy what you like, but buy mindfully. I mean, we are all stabbing in the dark. I wish I had a perfect answer for this. But because I'm from the media, I feel it's my responsibility to be able to talk about how we should consume tomorrow. As I said, mindfully, compassionately, keeping the environment in mind. I'm so excited to be able to talk to the readers about this in a fun, hip, cool, contemporary way where being sustainable is bloody sexy and cool. And we can do it as storytellers. I tell all my friends who are journalists, we forget the power of the pen and the imagination to inspire people to be better human beings, not by trying to be, hokey pokey about being moralistic, but just let's inspire people to have fun and be environmentally conscious.
That's great. Okay. Another question. Oh, I'll let Sarah talk actually.
Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Hi.
It's so good talking to you, Bandana. I really appreciate your presence.
Thank you for listening. And I'm just looking at how beautifully your name is spelled.
Thank you, Sarah with a Y. Yeah,
I love it.
Thank you.
Just love it.
So this is me. I have been talking to people, and I'm trying to get their views on what they think will happen after COVID-19. Some people are of the opinion that they would just want to live life to the fullest because for now they see that life is ephemeral. And then some people are like, they want to live responsibly and do better. So I'm saying, might this not mean that after COVID-19 there'll be two sides to it? Will people now still want to be more extravagant? People want to live on the excess or on the edge just because, okay, this is the only time we
absolutely agree.
Or will people now be, okay, we have only one earth and we have to be quite careful about it? So I'm like, I think there will be a divide. There might be extreme consumerism and there might be, sustainable thinking and responsibility. What do you think?
I think, the world is going to be divided. I mean, we thought it was funny when, there are people who love Trump and there are people who don't love Trump, right? I mean, in politics, that sounded so funny and we were all laughing about it. Now it's like people who believe in the environment, people who don't believe in the environment. It is going to be a very bipolar, bifurcated environment because people are reacting like people react when it's post-war. It's the post-war psychosis. It's like, eat, drink, and be merry because tomorrow you're going to die. And all out.
Yeah, that's true.
All out. And there's 100%. Most of Trump supporters are probably going to be doing that.
Because, today we die, tomorrow we die.
And the others are going to think about, but I have a daughter and I want my daughter to have a daughter or a son. And what are we going to leave behind for them?
True.
In my talk, I talked about aparigraha, which is one of the vows that Mahatma Gandhi took, one of the 11 vows that he took, aparigraha, which means we are mere custodians and trustees of the environment. We're not the owners. So this whole lackadaisical way of saying, oh, let me just live it up tonight because tomorrow I may die, that is literally halting your understanding of evolution, that I live and I will pass on, but someone else will live and someone else will live after. It's like saying you don't believe in your ancestors. For me, it's so such an unkind thought that I will only live and consume and be happy for myself today, for myself. And we've forgotten millions of years of evolution has brought us, human beings, here to appreciate this bounty of nature. And we want to deny the generations after us this pleasure of seeing a sunrise, seeing a coconut tree. I think, I'm not saying people won't be reckless. I think they will. There are lots of people who don't even believe in climate change. But as we can only do what we can do individually right now. We're all sitting in our homes alone, rotating in our own existential universe, you know? So we have to now decide for ourselves, what kind of a human being am I going to be when I can walk out of the door and I can hug a person, that I can go to work, what kind of human being am I going to be? It's intense. This COVID-19 is intense. But I think let's forget about what collectively we are going to do. This is a time for us to think about what we can do individually. And someone will go to one extreme and some to the other, but these are all individual choices. And we have got to take full ownership, whether it's good, bad, or ugly.
Thank you very much, Bandana. Thank you very much.
Sarah, with a really cool name. Really cool spelling.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Bandana. Firstly, I just want to say this is an amazing webinar and I'm really learning a lot. You said that you come from a publishing background, and I guess I'll describe myself as a fashion writer, in quotes, whereby I like to tell the stories of the faces that we don't see. So I spent my formative years growing up.
So you're a fashion documentarian.
Oh, that's a better word. Yes, I'm writing that down right now. Fashion documentarian. I like that very much. So I like to tell the stories of the faces that people don't see, and I'm very much interested in like the preservation of traditional techniques when it comes to fashion design and stuff like that. I was wondering, like, getting into the industry, because I'm doing like my own thing now, but I would like to actually like have a career, I guess, in the industry. How would you suggest going about that?
Where are you from?
I am Sierra Leonean and Guyanese, but I grew up in Sierra Leone, Guinea-Conakry, and the Gambia. It's yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm already dreaming. I just want to just go from one country to another in Africa. I'll tell you what, sweetheart. Just dip into your culture. We've done so much disservice coming from such rich cultures. I mean, you're from the continent of Africa, the motherlode. Let's just go back to our cultural inheritance. I think there's so much craft, art. You can be a perfect person, wise, clever, articulate. You know how to toggle different worlds, your own indigenous world, and the sort of the international world, as I call it, which is outside our own countries. We know how to toggle it. We speak different languages. Now you can be the biggest conduit between the crafts and design, and you can be the co-creators of beautiful things in the future that we want to keep forever. I think, I live in Bali, and, I go to a lot of these weaving villages. They make these beautiful ikats, and I see the families who make it. I see how they live, how the kids are being raised. And when I buy a fabric from them, I know where the money is going, who gets happy, who gets nourished, where that money actually has value. So please, I think just dip into what I said, dip into your own backyard. Don't look at alien worlds. For me, Paris Fashion Week and New York Fashion Week, they're alien to my reality. And but I'm not even, I think, and as you said, you're a documentarian, right?
Yes.
Your purpose is going to change radically, because now people are going to ask why things are being made, how they're being made, who made them, what's the backstory, which community, which culture. So your storytelling is going to be deep. It has to touch many aspects, not just the product. So you're in a good place. I think start telling stories about what's being created in your own environment first. And be proud of that. I do that all the time. I'm doing that more now than ever before.
Got it. I'll definitely do that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you too.
Great. Let me add another person.
What do you want?
We started.
Oh, really?
Yeah, where's the bottle?
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
I'm here.
Hi, Bandana. This is Gauri here from India.
Hi, Gauri.
My actually question is like how to push marketing part for the upcoming sustainable brand post COVID, and I mean, as you had said that you can upcycle it, but how to build it? Like, what's the fashion trend going to be up after COVID?
I mean, I'm just a fashion writer. I love the way you think I know what's going to happen after COVID. I'm just, no, I don't know. Like, what do you feel? Like, I feel the way things are marketed, the way things were advertised, marketed, PR'd,
Yeah.
PRable, I think they're not going to exist in the way they did. People are
Okay.
going to call out anything that doesn't sound real, you know? So I don't know what the marketing of tomorrow is going to be for like, imagine being in an advertising firm that has to sell stuff tomorrow, and everything will seem little sort of vacuous because how do you sell Coca-Cola tomorrow? You know what I mean? Like, how do you sell everything? So consumerist. We were so used to being sold in a particular way post-COVID, when everyone has struggled. Everyone has sat there and thought about life and death.
Yeah, it's scary actually. It's
So what is marketing then? How? So I don't have an answer, sweetheart. I really don't have an answer, because I think it is. I want to believe that it is going to evolve from this hard nose, va boom, Jerry Maguire, let me sell everything kind of attitude, you know, to something that is going to be kinder, more culturally adept. Like, how many things are we sold in India, for instance, that don't apply? The language
everywhere.
it doesn't apply to us, but we're being force fed because that's what the global marketeers tell you that you want, right? So I hope that marketing and advertising will change to understand where we come from, what our cultural context is, that they celebrate that we are different human beings culturally, that I admire the difference. I don't need to be same. That we've been told that I have to eat the same thing that you eat in America, you eat in England, and therefore I need to eat the same thing to be cool, to be hip, to be in the moment or whatever. No, not at all. I don't need to consume like any other country. I don't need to eat like any other country. I have my own culture. I have my own ways of eating and appreciating, and I will welcome everyone else who comes into my culture and show you how different we are, just like the other culture could be very different. So marketing, advertising will perhaps change, because we don't need brands that mean everything to everyone. Like, you can't homogenize, you know. It's like for far too long we've lived in a system where what I call the t-shirt system. It's like everyone wearing a t-shirt. Today I want to wear an ikat shirt that's made out in Indonesia. You know, I want to wear a tie-dye shirt that comes from Rajasthan. I want to wear a hand-dyed t-shirt that comes from Timbuktu. So I think, hopefully, for your sake, that marketing and advertising will change to address human needs, human emotions. Because we do want to buy things. We want to buy things. We want to value things. We want to admire things. But I hope we are not going to be all clumped together like we are some amorphous ball of putty that just keeps getting manipulated over and over again. I hope that will not continue.
Let's hope for good.
I hope so too, Gauri.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Hello?
Hello.
trying to get the other person to speak.
Hello, do you hear me?
I do hear you. Another amazing name.
Hello, Bandana. It's really, really nice to meet you and join this amazing workshop. I've listened to you, and this just sparks so many curiosities. I'm an academic, and I'm currently researching the cultural and creative industries in Africa. I'm based at the University of Birmingham, and you know, I'm sort of working on some research frameworks. You know, I really love this platform because it's given me an opportunity to engage with the more practical side of things, those of you that are really close to the issue and hands-on with the issue. From the academic perspective, I'm working on a framework which is looking at different political ideologies on cultural sustainability, right?
Right.
And it looks at 4 different players in terms of their mind process politically. The conservatives, so what you've mentioned about, you know, protecting craftsmanship, artisans, protecting that craft, protecting the people. Then you have the neoliberalists, and they're more economic focused. So how are we going to be economic with cultural sustainability? How are we going to still reward monetarily, almost financially, right? And then we have the communitarian, so protecting communities, cooperatives, what you've mentioned. And finally, the environmentalists, so, you know, nature, protecting as we source cotton, things like that, making sure that we're not destroying the environment whilst we're growing plantations. My question for you is, from a leadership perspective, how do you see a sort of a political body coming together with people like yourself that have sincere intentions and are very passionate about the subject? How do you see bodies coming together from the global north as well as the global south, pretty much everybody coming together within a movement to politically drive this collective together so that the consumer buys in? Because consumers, we're becoming very passionate, we're becoming very emotional and very reactive to the more the eco-centered debates. I teach consumer behavior, so we see this in the research. Consumers are really getting on board when we talk about the environment, you know, greener issues. They're listening because these are things that the capitalist system has sort of removed from the discourse for many years. So a lot of people bored with this, but what I'm not seeing are, you know, this sort of political almost body. We have very fragmented ones, like, you know, the fashion revolution is one of them, you know, really interesting body, but you have to find them. You have to find them and go to their website and say, okay, this is what they're doing. But I'm thinking, you know, in the future, are we going to have some kind of almost a political, I don't know what to call it, a political party. I don't know if it's ideal.
I think
but a joint movement.
Yeah, I think you. So I mean, I'm assuming, and you can say that I'm wrong, but these are like the big protests that are happening, right?
Right.
When I say protests, it's like what's it called? Rebellion, Extinction Rebellion.
Yes.
So they took on to the streets. They've politicized fashion because of the kind of disgraceful practices that we've been perpetuating for so long. But you know, in all honesty, COVID-19 ended every protest, right? Because we can't.
Right.
So for me, I literally, you know, one night it was a sleepless night thinking, what happens to democracy? What happens to people protesting for democratic rights in Hong Kong, to Indians sort of fighting for the rights of Muslims in India on the streets? What happens to women's marches against Trump in America, to Extinction Rebellion that's talking about the horrific standards that fashion has, the hypocritical standards? That's all gone right now.
Right.
So these systems that you're talking about, when you're saying political systems, it's not about being in the parliament, right? Or becoming a minister of parliament. It is, how are we going to re-engage and be political about
Yes.
new ways of consuming and producing and manufacturing and what have you. You know, you're the academic. You teach me. Tell me what to do.
Oh no.
I scratch my head because if you're not, the only thing that worked for us before COVID was I could go on the street and make a stand. And I would have a
Yes.
community. I would have a community and a tribe that I could walk with, you know, to
Yes.
fight the injustices of the world. But now that stupid virus doesn't allow us to congregate. So what is the protest of tomorrow? So what is being political as an
Yes.
independent person? What does it mean? You tell me. I'm
It's,
lost.
it's interesting. It's such a big learning curve. It's new paradigm, new dimension. And digital is definitely, I think, the forum for and even starting to engage. This is a unique opportunity to even be speaking to someone like yourself. You know, I've never, ever been able to join the Fashion Week as I am now, because I've always been away with other responsibilities. And this is giving an opportunity to engage and listen and join this conversation. So it's totally new territory.
No, that's wonderful. I
Yes.
appreciate it too, because can I be very truthful? You know, with all this high flying, everyone's like, oh, you're such a fashionista and you go here and you go there. Yes, I do. But people forget that, you know, I go there to do amazing interviews with amazing people and what have you. But this level of engagement where it's unprecedented for me. We were just writing fancy magazines and, you know, your friends would read it and your advertisers would read it and pat you on your back and what have you. But this level of almost like a very, it's like a sweet confrontation, if I may say so.
So well put.
Where I'm not too sure I have answers to everything, but there are questions and they're superbly intelligent questions from people. And I'm learning as much, by the way. So all this fashion was so undemocratic. You know, it was people sitting up there, the elite, dictating what the rest of us had to do and what we should wear, what we should discuss about fashion. You know, now I appreciate this kind of forum so much because we are really having the conversation that we need to have, because it's real conversations that consumers like you and me, who are not walking the catwalk, we are not the diva designers, we are not all the stereotypes and the tropes that we, I'm guilty of it, built in our publications. Now that is dismantling and we've got this forum where we can be truthful.
Yes.
And so I love hearing you as an academic and being able to tell you, honey, you give me the answers. You the academic.
Oh my goodness. Oh, thank you so much, Bandana. So nice to meet you.
Likewise. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ronque.
Thank you.
I've got another good question for you. Someone's asked, is there anything like cultural technology? And what do you think that means?
Wow. Who's this very bright person who asked a question that I'm going to have sleepless nights over now? Cultural technology. Well, I've always wondered, and maybe this is not the kind of answer the person is expecting me. I may have misunderstood the question. But, you know, and again, I'll go back to our countries that have huge traditional values and traditional sartorial provenance that we've inherited over generations, right? Whether it's some craft or skill or kind of silhouette and what have you. I always wondered why craft and technology never came together to empower the artisanal villages of the world, okay? Now, let me explain. Countries like India, Indonesia, most of Asia, whole of Africa, with all the indigenous crafts and skills, what we have, you know, they're all the soft powers of these nations. Textiles, handmade, made by hand, all that. These are all the soft powers of all these countries. And I really feel that how did technology not harness these the other soft power, which is textiles or handmade economy? They never came together. So cultural technology, I feel like I'm being asked questions that I have no answers to. Cultural technology, that I'm going to so research this, because this is at the forefront, or rather the confluence of technology, culture, and humanity. I mean, think what would come out of that. I'm going to think about this. In my next session with Woven Threads, I will have an answer.
No problem. I think that sounds great. Okay. We'll let someone else speak. Hello?
Yeah.
Hi. Okay. Hi.
Hi. Oh, guess what?
Yeah.
Diana, this is my house. You're innocent. I would not forget your name because Diana just told me that you're logging on. Hello,
Yeah.
innocent.
Hi. So I have a much easier question than technology. Very rudimentary.
Thank you. Cultural technology, I'm going to research. I promise
No. Mine is much easier. So I really know nothing about fashion. I'm not a fashion person, like really. My interest in this conversation, this workshop.
You wear clothes every day. What do you do? The first thing that you do?
First thing I do is I stretch my hand and pick up whatever my hand touches and wear. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but my interest in this conversation was from the angle of slowing things down and basically the slowing down process of, so to say. But then also listening to you speak, I was forced to consider fashion as an industry of its own that stretches beyond just the first-time buyer and the creator originally. I was forced to consider how I experienced fashion as a kid, which was basically what we call okrika in Nigeria here, bend down select. And I was forced to think about the process in which this clothes gets to us. Truthfully, it's basically the same fast fashion that people buy and then condemn after a number of wears that gets repackaged from Europe and for wherever and shipped all the way down to African countries. And then some people make their own businesses out of buying them and selling them. And
Correct.
that is how...
So you're talking about the second-hand...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that is how a young kid in some remote village knows what Adidas is and what have you. And while I totally agree with all your points with regards to slowing down the process, it's something I'm very much consumed with. I also realize that is it possible that I and we might be considering this from a slightly privileged position where we do not have to be in the position of relying entirely on the second-hand nature of this fast fashion and these quickly consumed materials. Because for some people, it is their bread. For some people, it is the only thing they get to afford to wear. I understand when you said that if you can afford it 2.99, you might as well be able to afford the $5.
I absolutely hear you. But what happens with the second-hand market, okay? And a lot of countries in Africa, India, we are famous for taking in the second-hand clothes that are being disposed by affluent Western countries, correct? Now that's a fact. And it floods our markets. It floods, and of course, it makes clothes cheap for people to buy. But what it really does, innocent, is that it kills the economy. So it kills the local manufacturers. It kills the market that would be self-sustaining ecosystems for our villages, our towns, and our cities. When you flood a market with really cheap stuff that's been disposed of by an affluent country in the name of charity, okay? A lot of it comes to countries like ours because it's been given away as charity. But the fact is, it comes and disrupts an economy that should be thriving on its own, because we do have our own manufacturers, we do have our own producers, we have our own mills. Putting a brake on that when you flood thrown away clothes, basically, from affluent countries. A lot of African countries stopped taking the clothes from America. India, we have a huge problem. They're killing the local economy, the local markets of manufacturing and producing, because it's being flooded by secondhand clothes that are coming in the name of charity, mostly, by the way. And then there is the hustling and the smuggling of stuff that goes into different markets and becomes vintage. And that becomes higher valued vintage, because it's brands that are coming and dumping their stuff in our countries. So in the long run, it does not work for the economy. It is detrimental of like ours, which is very bifurcated. It's the rich and the poor and the middle, and it disrupts the economy. So I have a huge problem with secondhand clothes now. My internet connection is unstable. I just read that.
Okay.
So I hope you got what I said.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much.
Because, sorry, just to say the last thing. So a lot of the clothes that would come into countries like ours would be sent because it is from, as an act of charity, okay? To clothe the poor, the ones who can't afford clothes. But it seldom reaches them because they go into a black market of secondhand clothing, trading, that not only does not give clothes to the ones who really need, but it disrupts the local factories and the local manufacturers. It's a huge problem in India. I've written a bit about this in the past.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to have links to the texts, and I would look them up. Thank you.
Okay. Sure. Thank you, Bandana. Okay, let's go back to the Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay, so Alan wrote, I've seen a couple of articles writing about whether or not small independent designers will survive the COVID-19 crisis. What is your advice to small, sustainable, independent designers who support artisans throughout this crisis?
Independent designers who use artisans?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, this is the toughest time for artisans all over, you know, the people who get left on the wayside. If you are a small business, it's a controllable business. You can continue to collaborate. I have friends who have small brands who work with artisans, and they're already thinking about post-COVID plans. So it's not about disengaging from the kind of creative work that you can do with them. You're deferring it by planning. I read a great article that said one of the biggest problems that's going to come out of this is that everyone is so busy living in the moment right now that they're not planning for post-COVID. And this could be the best gestation period for you to see how you can engage fruitfully, mindfully, when all this bullshit is over, because it will be over. There will be a vaccine that will come along. Whichever country makes it is going to be the most powerful, whatever it is, but the world economy cannot hold on, be this standstill. So it will move on. But I think as much as I personally love the idea of living in the moment right now, because we're in such existential hell, this is a great time to think about moving forward. Don't give up on your artisans. Engage them, start planning. What is it that you want to do? And because you're a small brand and you could be working with a handful of artisans, I think it's manageable for you to envision a world where you can make a beautiful collection when all this is over and have a story that is about this co-creation that happened between two parties. I can't bear to think what it would be if you were a brand that was churning millions of dollars and you've got 300, 400 staff members all over the world and you have to lay them off. That's a problem. If you're a small brand working with artisans, keep your community going, keep your creative juices going. This is a temporary phase where we've been told, pause, create, plan, think ahead. And that's how we should look at it.
Sorry, I keep on muting myself and forgetting. That was really great. Okay. Do you want to take maybe one more question and then? Yeah, because you've answered most of the questions.
One more, only because let me tell you, the funniest thing is happening right now. I'm a single mom and I have a 17-year-old daughter. She was about to graduate 3 months. She had only 3 months left. But now they're not going to have a prom. They're not going to have a graduation ceremony. So tonight they're doing a prom party on Zoom. I can't miss it.
Oh, wow, that's great. Okay, so very last question. Gautam said, I heard Vigga Svensson mentioned about a subscription model for sharing kids wear. Do you feel this model can work for other age groups and other types of genres?
So sharing subscription for kids clothes.
Yeah.
And it's applied to other things. 100% yes. I mean, this is what's happening all over. Like in Bali itself, my friends and I, we started something called Bali Swap, which is basically swapping pre-loved clothes. We don't throw them, we just swap them. There's no money involved whatsoever. And so we swap clothes among adults, and so do the kids. I find the kids category particularly interesting because they grew up really fast, right? So you tend to buy a lot more clothes over the span of 5-6 years when they just keep growing exponentially and you have to keep buying new clothes. I think it's a wonderful idea. I think it is so thoughtful to understand the trajectory of a child growing. And if you look at the consumption habit and how much parents spend money on buying new, we need to go back to our time. What did we do when we need to go and ask our grandmothers this. What did they do? The clothes were passed down, right? Exactly. Your brother sent it to his younger brother, my sister sent it. That's what we did. We don't have to reinvent new things. We just need to go back in time. What did our grandmothers do? That's what they did. They didn't buy clothes for us. They had like 9 children, if not more. And that's what they did. They passed the clothes down, and 3-4 generations of children would wear the same clothes. And that is a valuable story. So I love this question, and I hope you're going to do something about it.
All right, that's great. Thank you so much. This has been such a lovely session. I mean, we're so grateful to have you. You know, you're an amazing speaker. I was so excited about this, and I mean, you've ticked all the boxes and surpassed all expectations with that.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you, Mo. Thank you for this incredible opportunity. Thanks to everyone who listened, asked questions, and had the patience to listen to someone who's like all over the place.
We'll also be sharing this on YouTube as well because we never want the conversation to end. So we'll do this as soon as we can. Thank you so much again, Bandana. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love this session.
And all the best with your Zoom prom party as well.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be crazy. Well, the night is young. Let's see. You enjoy your day, everyone, wherever you are. Bye.
Have a good time. Bye.
Bye.